welcome to the video. I just wanted to make a quick video here summing up some of my predictions for the 2024 Europe's Strongest Man, which is happening the weekend after this video is posted. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. This is going to be a pretty quick video, not all that comprehensive, but just sort of summing up some of my initial thoughts for these events and competitors. So we'll just go event by event for every athlete. Right now, I just have everybody here alphabetical, so you can basically ignore those placings. That is not accurate to what we have here. So let's just go ahead and sort it out by the nickel stones first. So I'm just going to go ahead and reveal this, and we can sort it out first to last place. So here we see Pa Ojawire coming in last place in this event. This is solely just due to the fact that we've seen Pa on these stones before, and he typically doesn't really pick up that many points on them. He also is known to have grip as his weakness. That just basically has him in last place there. Then we have Frederick Johansson. He is one of the newer competitors. I believe this is one of his first international shows, if not his first. I do know that he is Sweden's strongest man, I believe, either from 2023 or 2022. So I just have him here in second to last place, getting only 2 points. Now, I do believe that he may have a pretty good grip. I think I've seen a couple videos of him doing some pretty grip specific training. So he totally could place a lot higher than that. I just don't really have a lot of information on him right now. And the nickel stones are also just generally pretty hard to either predict or correlate to general grip strength until you actually see the athlete on that event. So sort of the same thing goes here for Nicholas Camby. Again, this is one of his first international shows, at least in the pro open strongman scene, But I do believe that at OSG in 2023, he did something similar to the nickel stones. I'm not 100% sure. So I think he does have some level of experience, but again, it's very hard to tell. Nobody in this field really stands out as an amazing, stone carry athlete here. So everybody here is kind of going to be bunched up into the middle. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of very, very close scores, sort of in the 15 to 20 meter range, uh, at least for the winning athletes. And for the lower placing athletes, I wouldn't be surprised for them to be also placing pretty close to each other. So that aside, I have Nicholas Camby here with 3 points. In fourth, with 4 points, we have Ronald Heinle here, known to have not a very good grip, but he does manage to pick up a couple points on this sort of event. So I do imagine that he will be able to pick up at least a couple points here, maybe even beating a couple guys. Maybe those guys beat him. Again, it's very hard to predict. Andrej Oj2, I have no idea how to pronounce that, but I have him here with 5 points. Not really much information again. He has some decent results on farmers carries and things like that. So I do think that he could totally place mid-pack on this event. Then we have Gavin Bilton. He has done the nickel stones a couple times. Nothing spectacular, but with added experience, I do see him placing at least mid-pack here, maybe a little bit better, beating out a couple guys possibly. I have Alexei Novikov here in seventh. Alexei is fantastic at just about every strongman event. This just so happens to be one of the events that he is not, one of the top 5 guys in the world at. He is pretty decent though. Again, I expect him to be at least mid-pack in this event. He has beat Gav Bilton at a similar event in the same competition, so that's kind of why I have him above Gavin here. So yeah, basically mid-pack. I think that's can sort of be expected from Alexei here. Maybe a little bit better, but I kind of keep saying the same thing for everybody. I have Shane Flowers here with 8 points. Pablo here with 9 points. Pablo always looks pretty great in training with the nickel stones. He looks like he can walk forever with them. And then he sort of underperforms at the competition. but I do believe that he has an upward trend on his nickel stones, from competition to competition. So I do believe that he's going to be able to make an improvement on that, and I do think that that's going to sort of land him towards the top in this field. So in third place, we have Ivar Smockstellis. I do believe that according to competition data, he does have the third highest uh, distance on the nickel stones before. I'm not 100% sure, but he is pretty decent at them. Could totally see him towards that top half in the top three. Then we have Luke Stoltman here with 11 points in second place. Luke Stoltman used to hold the world record on the nickel stones. He is pretty consistent with getting around 20 meters with the nickel stones, which is, traditionally around top five. But again, this field doesn't really have any standout guys on the nickel stones. So I would 100% expect Luke to be at least in the top three. So now finally, we get to first place with Konstantin Janashia. Now, this might sort of be a left field pick here, considering that Janashia has never done the nickel stones. But as most people know, he is pretty good with a, sort of a frame carry, farmers, things such as that. So he does have a pretty good grip and knows how to move with weight. He has some pretty good training videos on these nickel stones. But again, it's not really, he hasn't really proven his ability on the nickel stones. But this is more sort of just a gut feeling. I do think Janashi is going to be doing pretty good here on the nickel stones. And if he doesn't, then I would expect Luke to be in first place. So moving on to the car walk, let's just go ahead and clear this up. So, and let's just sort this out as well. So in last place, we have Ronald Heinle here. Ronald is typically decent at yoke. However, I do believe that he is recovering from a surgery of some sort. Uh, he recently competed at the Arnold UK, and he was visibly a lot slower on the yoke than he is normally. So it might just be that he is not fully recovered yet. So I would expect a lot of other athletes that are sort of, a bit younger, a bit faster, to be able to outpace him here. In second to last place, I have Shane Flowers, who just traditionally sort of underperforms on the yoke. Well, I wouldn't really say traditionally. Uh, Sort of in the 2021 Britain's Strongest Man, I believe that was the competition. They had a car walk where he did not place so good. Now, that is, of course, about 2.5 years ago. He could have totally made a lot of improvements. Who knows where he's going to place, but sort of just off of the training and the previous results, that's sort of where you would expect him, but we'll end up seeing where he, ends up placing. Frederick Johansson here in third to last place, scoring 3 points. Uh, Again, just not a lot of information. It's very hard to place, sort of some of those new guys. Uh, I hate to place him so low, but again, I just don't really know where else to place him. He could totally come out and do amazing. Gavin Bilton here in fourth to last place, getting 4 points. Uh, Gavin has been making some steady improvements on the yoke. However, I just think that some other guys here in this competition would be able to outperform him here. I have Nick Canby here in fifth to last place, scoring 5 points. Uh, I do believe that from his under 105 days, that he was decent at yoke, or at least pretty decent with moving events. So sort of just have him here in what is it, eighth place on the car walk. He also has been looking pretty good in training. He's been definitely training really hard for this. Seems like it's a competition he really wants to you know, show out on and do pretty good. So I do think he's gonna have a decent performance in the car walk. Maybe somewhere in the mid pack. Have Paul Dwyer here in seventh place, scoring 6 points. Paul, he is decent at yoke. He can move pretty fast with it. Uh, that's all I can really say. He's had some pretty good results. So I have him here around mid pack. Um, Again, same goes for Ivar's. pretty well-rounded athlete. Uh, you could sort of expect him to be at least mid-pack in all of these events, including this one. So we have Andrzej Wojtaszek too in fifth place. I do believe I've seen some results where he's placed pretty decently on the yoke. Um, and again, just he's just generally pretty good at, sort of moving weight. So I just have him there in fifth place. We have Luke Stoltman here in fourth place. So now these top four guys right here, these are sort of the guys you're going to be expecting to be fighting for that first place position. These are sort of the standout names, I'd say. So again, back to Luke. He's actually, I believe, a lot faster than people really give him credit for. Um, Yoke and car walk included. But I do think that the top three guys in this event right here are just gonna be able to outperform him on this one. So we have Konstantin Janashia here, scoring 10 points. Janashia has historically been really, really good at yoke and car walk. And he seems like he's in really good shape, at least from his training footage, which I'll sort of bring up again later. So that sort of just indicates to me that he's going to be at least somewhat back to that old Janashia that we all sort of know, back to 8 years, 2016. That's sort of when he was at his best, in my opinion. Sort of 2016 to 2019, that sort of era, Janashia was really fantastic. And then, of course, in 2019, he suffered a tricep injury, which sort of set him back for the last couple of years. But it does seem that he's sort of as close to that state as he's ever been, you know, post 2019 injury. So I would expect Janasha to be sort of back into that prime shape for the yoke and the car walk, scoring him third place in this event. So top two, we have both Ukrainians. Generally, both of these guys are just the fastest guys on the field. So again, we have Pablo here in second place. I just think Alexei Novikov is a little bit faster than him on a yoke. But honestly, I could see Pablo overtaking Novikov. Novikov has sort of been decreasing in speed over the past year or so. So definitely think it's between these two guys for the car walk. Maybe Janashia as a dark horse. All right, so moving on to the deadlift ladder. Let me go ahead and sort this out and reveal here. All right, so in last place here, we have Nicholas Camby. Let me just say something about this deadlift ladder event in general. I do believe it's going to be 5 deadlift bars from 300 kilograms to 380 kilograms. I do think not necessarily that everybody will do this, but I think that everybody is capable of at least pulling that fourth bar of 360 kilograms. Um, so with that being said, Nicholas Camby, I do think that even if he does pull that 360 kilograms, he'll just be a little bit slower than everybody else. Same thing with Pablo, although he is, just about the fastest guy on the field. Um, he might need to take a little bit of a break before before he pulls that 360 kilogram bar, sort of resulting in a longer time than most other guys. I'd sort of say the same thing for Ivars. Um, Either he takes a while to lift that last bar, or he just ends up missing it. Or again, Ivars' deadlift has sort of been improving sort of over the last year. So he might breeze through those first four. Uh, I don't know if he'll get the fifth, but he might be able to breathe through the first four. But generally, I think that the other guys above him have a higher chance of, doing it a little bit faster than him. So again, we have Paul Dwyer here in ninth place. Paul's a pretty good deadlifter, but I'm not sure if this sort of deadlift suits him, where you have to be a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more on your toes, just go for it. Uh, I think Paul would do better on just a regular deadlift for reps, but for now, I just have him here in ninth place. Luke Stoltman. This has traditionally been sort of Luke's best deadlift format since it allows him to, not need to be as strong of a deadlifter as others in the competition to beat them. He usually is able to pick up points here by being very fast up to the fourth bar. But just looking at the people in this competition, uh, I either think that they will be able to get to that fourth bar faster than Luke, such as, somebody like Shane Flowers, who I generally think is turning out to be faster than Luke. He's a bit younger than Luke, and that sort of thing. So I either think these guys above Luke are going to be faster than him or be able to pull that fifth bar. Now, I believe even from Frederick up until, Alexia, of course, I think they are capable of pulling the 380 kilograms. And yeah, I'll speak on that sort of a little bit later as I get to them. So that's basically what I have to say for Luke. For Shane, I sort of already commented on it. I think he'll be able to outspeed Luke to the four bars. Not sure if he'll be able to get the 380 kilograms. Um, but if he does, then I definitely think he'll beat Luke. But, on to Frederick. He's actually a pretty good deadlifter. I think he has a result of a 350 kilogram deadlift for 7 reps. That's sort of, in a giant slab sort of competition, that's usually around top three kind of a position. So he's definitely a good deadlifter. I wonder though if a deadlift ladder is gonna, require a little bit more experience, maybe throw him off a little bit. So although I think that he could get that fifth, that last bar, the 380 kilograms, I think if he doesn't get that, he could definitely lose out to Luke Stoltman here, uh, just based off of time. So that could give Luke some extra points, could drop Frederick some points. All right. So again, Andrej, really destroying that name, unfortunately, but he's a pretty good deadlifter. I'd imagine that if he doesn't get that fifth bar, that he would be able to, sort of breeze through the first four. Gavin, I definitely think he's capable of getting that fifth bar. He's deadlifted 380 kilograms for, which is the weight of the last bar. So he's deadlifted 380 kilograms for 5 reps. So I definitely think he'll be able to do a ladder up to 380 kilograms. Uh, but again, it sort of depends on the shape that he's in. He did sort of suffer some sort of uh, mishap with his knee at the Arnold UK, but I do think that he's sort of healing up a lot better now. So hopefully he is able to perform to his best. If not, then a slow four could really drop him some points here. So anyways, moving on to Rano Heinle. I'd say Rano's probably the best deadlifter in this lineup, aside from, you could argue, the time of the year with Janashia, but even then, I think right now Rano would still beat him out. Um, so yeah, I do think Rano's going to be able to get those 5 pretty easy, but I just think these top 2 guys are going to be faster than him. So again, Janashia, basically the same thing. I think he's going to be able to get those 5. His deadlift is looking really great right now. He pulled 430 kilograms right off the ground. Uh, it's been many, many years since I've seen him move that kind of weight. So that's definitely a great sign for Dunashia. And then again, we go over here to Alexei Novikov in first place. Novikov's deadlift has been progressing massively over the past, I'd say, 2.5 years. So definitely think that he's still going to be in the, pretty good deadlifting shape. And again, Novikov is pretty fast. I think that combination is going to easily allow him to be first place here. If he doesn't get first place, I think that is sort of trouble for him. And, it's definitely something that he's going to want to achieve in this competition. I do think Novikov is actually going to be able to do this ladder even suitless, so that might also contribute to his speed. We saw him pull a similar ladder at World's Strongest Man 2022, where he was suitless as well. I believe it was the same weight, 300 to 380 kilograms. So yeah, again, I really think this event is Novikov's. to lose, especially considering that his deadlift is, one of the things that is at its best right now, considering the his result at the Arnold, his deadlift at the Arnold, he pulled, I believe, it was 900 something, low 900s, but that's a pretty good number for Alexi. It shows that he's still progressing. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say for the deadlift ladder. So all right, let's move on to the Viking press. Let me go ahead and reveal these here and order them. All right, so Viking press. In the last place here, scoring only 1 point, we have Frederick Johansson. Uh, I think looking at his competition results, I think pressing is one of his weaknesses. So I think he just ends up being the weakest presser in this lineup. Although he might be able to sort of tie some of, these three guys here above him. So again, I have here Pa, Shane, and Rano tied for, I don't even know what you would call it, but from the 9th to 11th spot. I'm not sure how many reps I'd expect them to hit, but somewhere close to each other at least. It might not be a perfect tie, but I think they'll end up sort of placing around this area of the table. Um, Pa and Rano traditionally don't really pick up that many points on pressing events. Pa maybe on a dumbbell, but this is very different from a dumbbell. And then Shane, he just again traditionally underperforms on his overhead uh, events in competition. He actually always looks pretty fantastic in his training. For example, I think maybe it was last year for Europe's, he was training the log ladder, and I think he had hit something like a 190 kilogram log strict. And then in the competition, he was using a push press. Uh, he wasn't able to finish the ladder, unfortunately. So for whatever reason, he just seems to underperform on his overhead press events. So I sort of expect him to be towards the bottom, hopefully mid pack, um, for the Viking press. Uh, Sort of same thing goes for Rauno. He's just, well, as same thing goes for Rauno as Paul. Just sort of loses points on pressing events nowadays. Um, so then we get to this next bracket here. I have Nick Camby, Ivars, and Gavin sort of tied here. Again, sort of similar thing goes for these three as Rauno, Shane, and Pa. They might not get an exact tie, but I sort of expect them around this area of the table. Gavin, well, actually, all of these three guys have are pretty good pressers. Gavin and Ivars, I believe, both have experience on this specific kit. Nicholas Camby, when he competed in the under 105s, he was always, basically getting first place on every overhead press event. He was sort of an overhead specialist. So I definitely expect him to not be placing towards the bottom of the table. Um, if anything, out of these three guys, I expect Nick Camby to be the most likely to surprise. So hopefully Nick Camby is going to be able to sort of place towards the top end of the table. So then I have Janashia and Bojtu here tied. I think they're sort of, at least when Janashia is at his best, I think these two are sort of on par with their log press. If I remember correctly, I think Bojtu has a log press of maybe around 210 kilograms. That's honestly off the top of my head. I know it's at least 200 kilograms. And Janash at his best did a 202.5 kilograms. So they're sort of in that similar realm. We'll end up seeing what happens. I do think they're gonna be be placing sort of above that mid pack. And then finally, these top three guys, I have Novikov, Kordiaka, and then Luke in ascending order. Novikov, he's a great presser, has experience on this. I think he's going to do great. Um, I think Kordiak and Stoltman just have a higher chance of outperforming him, especially, Pablo recently has been shown to sort of be a little bit more explosive than Novikov. Um, and again, Kordiaka, he looked actually pretty great in the Strongman Classic where they held the Viking press. Um, Unfortunately, he was in a competition with some pretty insane Viking pressers. So I don't think he even got like top three or four, but I think he got like 15 reps. It's a pretty good performance on this kit. So definitely think Kordiaka is going to be in the top three. Um, but I would expect Luke Stoltman to beat him here if Luke is anywhere near his prime pressing shape, which, Luke has been looking pretty good in his training. Looks like he's back on track. Looks like he's doing pretty good. So I have no reason to believe that Luke would not be able to win this event. But definitely think it's between these top three guys. If not, maybe some surprise from maybe Foch 2 or Camby. All right, so anyways, moving on to Atlas Stones, which is the final event. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and reveal this and show off these Atlas Stones. Um, yeah, I think I'll go with that. I'll just talk about the Atlas Stones first before I reveal the final points. So in 12th place, I have Nicholas Camby here, scoring 1 point. I think there was either just a lack of data for Nick Camby on sort of the open weight stone sets, either that or there were some poor performances for him on the stones. It was either one of those two. Can't really remember off the top of my head. It's been a couple of days since I made the spreadsheet, but uh, sort of expect them to be sort of in the lower end of the pack here. Coach 2, uh, in his last Giants Live competition, he sort of dropped a lot of points on the stones. So unless he's made some pretty good improvements there, then I sort of expect him again to be sort of towards that lower end of the pack. Frederick Johansson. Now, I don't believe that there's a lot of data for him on Atlas stones, but I did see a training clip of him lifting a 213 kilogram stone, something like that. It was an Atlas stone. So, it was a pretty decent lift. So I generally think he is pretty good at stones. So he might end up placing a lot better than I have him here. Hopefully so. Um, but we'll just end up seeing what happens. Stones are pretty hard to predict, especially in this competition, as I guess I'll end up talking about later on, as I go up this list. So I have Rauno here in ninth place, scoring 4 points. Rauno is a pretty great stone lifter, uh, but I'm just sort of predicting him to lose some points just based off of speed. Now, if he's able to load that fifth stone, while a lot of others end up missing it, then, that'll bump him right up to the top half of this list. But for now, just off of speed, Rano in ninth place. Sort of the same thing goes for Pa. He's a decent stone lifter, but he might lose out some points either by not being able to lift the last stone or, off of speed. He's not really one of those speed demons on these stones. All right, so now sort of where it gets interesting. I think I'm gonna skip over here to these top three on the stones before I talk about the middle four guys right here. So I have Gavin in third. I think Gavin is, top three out of this list on stones. If you just look at results, he usually places pretty good on these. So I would expect sort of the same thing here, so long as he's healthy, of course. Ivar's in second place. Ivar's is, in my opinion, I think he's probably like top 10 in the world at stones. Um, if any of you guys remember to performances at World Ultimate Strongman, on the 10 stone runs, they were always pretty amazing. So, Ivers is known to be pretty good at stone runs. However, I do think that Shane Flowers, he's had a pretty great upward trajectory, I guess you could say, on his stones. Pretty consistently placing top three, top four, whatever, and I do think that he ends up being the best stone lifter in this competition. You could argue between him and Ivars, but definitely think that it is between them two with a little bit of an edge towards Shane. So now, I guess to talk back down to these guys right here. Let's see. So, sort of what I was saying earlier, that these stones are going to be very hard to predict here. I think that any of these four guys can beat themselves. So I think what's best to do is sort of reveal the final points here. I'm just gonna uncover this right here and sort them out. So, right, so we see that here, my first place guy is Novikov, followed by Janashia, Stoltman, and then Kordiaka. So, and I'm bringing this up because it's sort of relevant to the impact of the stones here. So Kordiaka, I have him with 41 points. So I do think he's a little bit out of reach uh, from these top three guys, which mainly comes down to the fact that he loses a lot of points on the deadlift ladder. If he manages to, do a fast forward, get some points on there, then he's definitely in contention. But just off of, these quick predictions, I think he's going to struggle to retain his title. So as for Luke, now here we can see that Luke is just 2 points off of first place, according to my predictions, of course. So essentially what I'm saying here is I think it's really going to come down to the stones for the order of this podium. So if we sort of, you know, go back here to this list, we see that I have Novikov beating Janashia and Luke beating both of them. However, you know, if two more people end up getting between Novikov and Luke, Luke could take it. If even if Janashia just beats Novikov, Janashia takes it. Uh, you know, I'm sure it's not that difficult to see how this could be a close battle. Now, with that being said, this is just, my random predictions. I'm pretty confident that this is going to be the top four. Maybe Ivar's sneaking in there. Maybe Shane. I sort of have him uh sort of low here, but yeah, that sort of sums it up. I think it's going to be a pretty good competition. Although some of the hype was killed when Mateus had to unfortunately pull out due to suffering an injury. But, after I made these predictions, I do think it's going to be a pretty good finish. Definitely think it's going to be between Novikov, Janashia, or Stoltman. Stoltman and Novikov and Kordiaka all being previous Europe's strongest man champions. So it would definitely be interesting to see if Janashia could pull off the win here. Just a quick comment on Janashia's, my predictions here. He could, you know, drop some points on the nickel stones. It's a very hard event to predict. So, you know, just based off of that, it could sort of drop him out of contention for that podium based off of my predictions. But I do think that the car walk, deadlift ladder, uh, even the Viking press are sort of reasonable predictions. And even his Atlas stones, if I'm being honest, let me just sort this back out here. His Atlas stones, he is no slouch on the Atlas stones. Uh, Even recently, if I call back to the 2022 Arnold UK, if you check out those results, I think he got sort of top three in that. He had a pretty fast stone run up to 200, up to a 200 kilogram stone. So if he's able to replicate that, that could be the difference between a win and a loss here. Um, then to comment on Luke, let's see. Nickel stones, I think that's a pretty reasonable. Car walk, a reasonable prediction, I think. Viking press, I think it's reasonable. Stones, I think it's reasonable again. So that again sort of brings it to the deadlift ladder. If he's able to perform pretty well on this deadlift ladder, maybe he is able to outspeed Shane. Maybe he's able to outspeed Frederick. Maybe Frederick, only gets four. Maybe he's able to outspeed Andrej. Maybe he's able to outspeed Gavin Bilton if both of them fail. Um, basically what I'm trying to say is that Luke is also definitely in contention here. Um, and then as for Novikov, I think Nicholstone's mid pack I think that's reasonable, maybe even a little bit better. Car walk, he could lose points off of speed. just due to his, recent performances. I don't think he's as fast as he used to be, maybe yet. He's still like 27 or something, so he could just be recovering. Deadlift ladder, I think that's reasonable. Viking press, he could lose out some points there. His surgery was on his triceps. Sorry, not on his triceps, on his elbow. So it does affect his pressing strength. That might sort of hinder him here. Uh, so he might lose points there. And then Atlas Stones, he, I think 7 points is sort of reasonable just due to his recent performances on Stones. He's sort of dropped a couple points every now and then. They've been a little bit inconsistent. Uh, but I do think Novikov has a faster time than even Shane Flowers on one of the stone sets, I think up to 180 kilograms. So if it's the light stone set, Novikov might get a lot more points on the Atlas stones, but I'm not sure again if it is the lighter or the heavier stones. They sort of can literally change that mid competition. Um, so yeah, basically to sum it up, it's going to be a real close competition, I think. Never really works out the way I think does it. But I thought it was pretty fun to make this. Hopefully it gives sort of a gauge on what you can expect out of these guys. Hopefully everybody outperforms what I'm predicting, and hopefully it ends up being a great competition. So thanks for watching the video, and that's pretty much it.